All right, now we look at the fundamental Scrum values and principles, and you will again see that these very closely mimic the agile principles and values that we introduced in Study Unit 1. After all, the Scrum framework is an agile framework, so of course it will contain elements of of agile delivery. Okay, so there are 4 specific Scrum values, namely commitment and focus, secondly openness, thirdly respect, and lastly courage. Okay, let's start with the first one, commitment and focus. The team commits ultimately that they are willing to decide amongst themselves on the set goal and what they need to deliver ultimately for the project. So the team has to collectively focus and concentrate on a specific goal at hand. All right. So you don't have different groups of people working towards sort of many different goals. Everybody in the team, in the Scrum team, works towards a common focus and commits towards the delivery of a common focus. And we've already touched on this. The team is collectively accountable and collectively answers to work deliverables that have been committed to. So the Scrum framework has a particular set of code of ethics referred to as the Scrum Alliance Code of Ethics. And basically this is where the team commits, for argument's sake, that they will take responsibility for the work that they do, that any decisions will be based collectively and will be for the greater good of the project team and the organization, that the team will take ownership of any mistakes and errors, right? And they will be accountable, and they will protect the propriety or confidentiality that has been entrusted to them. And the team also commits to proactively disclosing any project information, even if it may not be great news. And of course, the team commits to working together to resolve any conflict that can arise. The second Scrum value is the value of openness. And this value says that team members must be open with each other and they must handle interactions with emotional maturity. I think the fundamental thing is that whenever you have a group of people working together, it is inevitable, of course, that there will be fallouts, maybe misunderstandings, and so on and so forth. It's inevitable. It's part of human nature. But these Scrum values sort of help to provide guidelines under which things need to be done in the team. So the aspect of openness is quite important in the Scrum framework. So the Scrum Alliance Code of Ethics around openness says that team members will seek to establish the truth and work towards the truth. The team will always strive to create an environment where everybody speaks the truth, of course, with emotional maturity and in a courteous manner. The team commits to being truthful and communicating openly. The team will be, transparent, and they will provide accurate information in a timely manner. The team will make commitments and promises in good faith, and the team will not condone, or rather will condone, behavior that is designed to be deceptive. So there's an aspect, an element around trust and truthfulness when we work together in a team. Now, interestingly enough, and we've kind of alluded to this as well, is that at the start of any project, you kind of have a group of people coming to work together. And oftentimes these are people that don't know each other, they haven't interacted before, and the fundamental premise is you can't get a group of people into one group, into one room, for argument's sake, and, magically start, performing or doing work, right? So there are various levels and stages that the team has got to go through before they get to a point where they can perform. So we call this the 4 stages of team maturity, and they are firstly forming stage, the storming stage, thirdly the norming stage, and fourthly, the performing stage. So typically when a group of people come in and sort of come to work together, and of course this applies in every environment, not just in a project environment. This could be a group of people coming together to do anything, for argument's sake. Initially, there's a forming phase where, we come together, we don't know each other, we, trying to understand each other, and, we could be reserved and a little bit apprehensive, all right? And, of course, trying to introduce ourselves to each other, trying to get a sense of who everybody is. So that forming stage, you can't exactly say, that's the best optimal team level. That's the level where the team is trying to figure themselves out. The second stage is the storming stage, and by the very name, you can already suppose that, there is a little bit of conflict and storming that takes place. So this is when, people start working together, and you start realizing that, in order for us to work together, we're going to have to have some sort of rules and common understanding, because it's easy for us to misunderstand each other. It's easy for us to, see things differently and in different perspectives. So in storming, the team members begin to openly challenge each other, and, that's where conflict starts to come in, because, when we come together and work together, we're from different backgrounds, different experiences, and all of that kind of comes into one big melting point. But a team has to go. A group of people that work together on anything have got to go through that storming process. And it's uncomfortable, right? Because I'm trying to understand, your method of communication, and, what's the best way that I can, talk to you about something. I'm trying to understand, days when you are not feeling well, not in the best of moods, but I've got to communicate, important information to you. So in storming, the team members begin to openly challenge each other. Some conflict begins to arise, and the team has to work through that storming phase. Then you get to the third one, which is the norming, where, after you've stepped on each other's toes every now and then, had a bit of a few uncomfortable discussions and conversations, you kind of come to an agreement. Okay, you know what? We may not always see eye to eye, for argument's sake, but, we've got to agree on, a couple of things in order for us to deliver work. So in the norming stage, the team then just starts agreeing and putting together defined rules. This is how I'd prefer for you to talk to me and address me. This is, how I'd prefer for you to do this. If you have a problem with me, I prefer, you address it this way and not that way, right? So that norming phase is when things really start to settle in. It's like when you build a house. Over the first couple of years, of course, it's got a foundation and the bricks and the walls. The house goes through the stage, or any other building rather, where it settles. And when the foundation settles, you can start seeing a little bit of cracks here and there. It doesn't mean the house or the building is going to fall down. What it simply means is that the building settles. And, the norming stage effectively is that stage where the team finally just settles in. And then the last stage is performing. So this is where the team reaches the highest level of performing. Right. So a project team or the development team, like any other team, then has to go through all of these different phases. But in order for the team to reach a point where the team members communicate openly, work together, they of course have to go through all of these different stages that we've spoken about. All right, the next Scrum value is the value of respect, and this sort of goes without saying. The team has to commit to show high regard for themselves, for others, and for the resources that they are entrusted with. And of course, Scrum teams are encouraged to work in an environment of respect, of trust, of openness, mutual cooperation and collaboration as well. So with regard to respect, the Scrum Alliance Code of Ethics stipulates that the team, respects the rights and beliefs of others, and of course it doesn't mean that, you always agree with other people's, beliefs and thinking and all of that, but showing a level of respect We listen to other people's viewpoints. We seek to understand. We approach directly those persons with whom we've got conflict and disagreement to try and resolve. We conduct ourselves in a professional manner. So even if, you've got beef with another team member, you've got to still conduct yourself, right, in a professional manner, even when it's not reciprocated. So it calls for a level of maturity, because somebody could come to you and speak to you in a very rude way, and you responding in a respectful manner, and and they're not reciprocating. All right. So it calls for quite a level of maturity. We negotiate in good faith. We do not exercise power or our expertise on people. So like we said, in the team context or the team construct, everybody is equal. We do not discriminate against people's gender, race, religion, disability, nationality, sexual orientation, and so on. And we do not engage in any illegal behavior. The last Scrum value is the value of courage. And what this means is the team has the boldness to do the best thing that they can do in a given iteration or sprint in order to bring value. And it is, a principle of you endure as a team. So you're going to work through difficult challenges, pressured days, times where you've got to put in extra hours in order to, deliver a specific project, but you endure as a team. You never give up as a team. Right? So the element of courage is quite important. The element of courage, or the value of courage, also stipulates that the team has a determination and are resolute to take ownership of any decisions that are made and take ownership whether we succeed or whether we fail. Right, the Scrum Alliance Code of Ethics says the team will share any bad news when it is properly received. So there's an openness, the courage to go back to your stakeholders and say, we had committed to deliver this feature, that feature, and that feature. Unfortunately, we have not been able to. So, have the courage to share and communicate bad news. Avoid bearing information. Avoid taking credit for achievements that are of others. And would rather say no rather than making false promises. So remember, we said the relationship in Agile between the stakeholder and the development team is that of mutual trust and understanding. So if a customer comes and says, we need to land this massive project in this iteration, and you've got to deliver 100 features, the courage, the delivery team should have the courage to say, sorry, we actually can't do that. This is as much as we can do, even when we push ourselves, to the limit. We accept the possibility of failure, but always know that we can learn from it. So one of the principles in Agile is that as a team, you are permitted and allowed to fail, right? So failure is good. It's encouraged because it means you are stepping out of the norm, out of your comfortable spot. You make mistakes, but the important thing is that you learn from those mistakes and incorporate that into your future attempts. We acknowledge that change is inevitable, that change leads to growth, and that growth guides us towards improvement. And as a team, we admit when we need help, we'll ask for help. And I think this raises an important conversation around just working with, we were saying, difficult people or difficult team members. And, sometimes you get to a situation where as a team, you try and work through the conflict, you try and work through the disagreements and so on. And sometimes it just doesn't work, right? And then you've got to have the courage to ask for intervention and say, we've had a problem with Mpho, for argument's sake, for quite a while. We don't believe as a team member and a team player, and, escalate that to management, and then, several decisions can be made around how to move forward with that. All right, so there is that element of boldness, sometimes having to speak the truth, sometimes having to call somebody out when they are not playing ball or not being a team member.